This is Katherine Marsh. Welcome to the Rotary eClub of Florida. We have a couple of members here, and there'll be many more joining from all over the world when we start out. We have right now present is John Stockham and Melissa Stockham, and we'd like them to welcome you. And then
Welcome.
We might have others joining. I know that Carolyn Willett just tried to join, but from the Carolinas, but she has no internet. So, and would you like to introduce Katherine to the world?
Yes, I'll be glad to. Kathy Marsh. Katherine Marsh modeled herself after watching her grandmother's life of service. She believes that a life of service starts young, and that education is the key to understanding the need and desire to help others. The power of one is building relationships that inspire, encourage, and help others. And she believes in a hand up, not a handout. She mentors women in the belief that women should lift each other up. She is an amazing civil servant. She goes beyond the requirements of her expected duty requirements and comes up with ingenious solutions that scripted hourly employees do not normally think to follow. Born and reared in the steel town of Lackawanna, New York, Kathy Marsh earned her BA in print journalism from Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. She started her on-air career in Michigan at the nation's second smallest TV market, Alpena, Michigan. Then a jump to Cadillac, Traverse City, Michigan, brought her to anchor the 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. newscasts for 4 years. Kathy worked in her hometown of Buffalo for 4 years on the CBS affiliate as an anchor and reporter. Kathy moved to Florida in 1992 to work at WESH TV, Orlando, as a reporter. She currently lives in Apopka, Florida, with her dachshund, Dooley. While growing up in Western New York State, she watched her very active maternal grandmother champion causes for folks who may have been less fortunate. Her grandmother was the first female to run for an elected office in the city of Lackawanna. As a child, Marsh saw the fierce determination of her grandmother, and it had a lasting impact. She carried that impact of sharing the truth, relationship building, and educating others into her career in TV news, and then as Director of Media Relations for several years at Orange County Public Schools. When her current boss, Orange County Commissioner District 2 Christine Moore, was elected to office in 2018, Marsh joined the commissioner as Senior Aide specializing in Constituent Services, showing the ability to unravel some very unusual situations to provide the best results for taxpayers' questions and concerns. She enjoys a challenge, is happy to serve others, and is eager to explain and share what she has learned in her various positions. Please welcome Kathy.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for that introduction.
You're welcome.
I know, thank you very much. I know that I'm here today because I've been honored with an honor from your organization, and I'm very grateful for that, and I don't take that for granted at all. And I'm just glad that I can still, at this age, be relevant and be able to give back to others. My career in television news certainly allowed me to be a good constituent services handler today, because in television news, you're exposed to the best in human beings and the absolute worst. You see both sides of life. One thing is so for sure, though, and this is something I bring to my job at Orange County government as senior aide every day in helping others, just as Rotarians do, is everybody wants to be listened to, everybody. And you have to be able to have that ear to listen. As a TV news reporter and anchor, one of the key elements to excel in your career is to be able to listen and interpret quickly. So listening is one skill that a constituent services employee has to have, but you also have to do it quickly, because you don't get just one call a day. You can get up to, on busy days, 20 calls a day, in addition to doing other work. So you have to be able to interpret what's being said quickly. And that's not always easy, especially when a person's stressed or suffering from some notion that he or she has been not dealt with properly by the government, or somebody who's just bringing to you a new concern, and wow, you're realizing they're in a pickle, and you try to help them as much as you possibly can. I feel that growing up as I did, and I will say this over and over again, and I have the ability to say it now at the age of going on 64, growing up in a blue collar town that was pretty much a one mill steel town, and most dads, not women at the time, most dads worked at that place in some level. We were all equal. We all felt, I was blessed to have a racially diverse community where I grew up just south of Buffalo. I was blessed to have a religious diversity in my community. I was very blessed to be able to see that when you work hard, in most cases, you will get rewarded. And the reward that you get from working hard isn't necessarily tons of money, but it's peace of mind. How can one possibly prepare him or herself? And I'm sure as Rotarians, you know this. How can you prepare yourself to give back to others if you're not happy within you? So my belief rides with, and this circles back to the story that I'm going to bring to you about my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, though both grandmothers were phenomenal. My maternal grandmother's story really sticks out. And she always said, you have to be, whatever you're going to do in life, you're going to do it for a long time. So A, make sure that you like doing it. And B, make sure that you don't expect anything from doing it other than being able to come home to your family at night and being able to share with them good things that happened during that day. When my grandmother was 29, and this is integral to my bringing up, when my grandmother was 29, her husband was a police officer and he was hit by a truck and killed. She had 3 children at home, a 6-year-old son, my mother who was 4, and a baby boy who was 18 months. And at the time there was no Social Security. It was 1929. My grandmother was born in 1900. So she realized pretty quickly, yeah, I got to go to work. So she did. She went to work and she worked until the day of 70. And she worked 3 jobs. But she also realized the ability to make connections in her community. She said, you know, it's nice to go to work and I have to feed these kids and everything, but I still want to be part of giving back. She could have been bitter. Anybody would have been bitter at that point. A 29-year-old widow in that era. And 2 years after my grandfather died, her toddler son died. He developed pneumonia and died. She really should have been bitter, but she wasn't. And she said, no, just always help others. And so in her line of work, she assisted, she was an assistant in what was then called the handicap department at school, which we know today is exceptional student education. And what I watched growing up around her was when children would age out of that then system, it was like a K-8 school, they would still call her. You know, a lot of them didn't go on to high school for whatever reasons, but they would still call her as they got positions going through life and say, hey, Mrs. K, I'm doing this. And hey, Mrs. K, I just had a baby. And many of these students were polio victims because of the era. And they had suffered polio. And many of them had gone on and raised families and were very excited that they knew back when they were in elementary school, there was an aide, an assistant who would allow them to work with them on the various types of physical equipment that they had to better their walk and better their gait, etc. And my grandmother would work with them and sometimes stay after school to work with them. And they remembered that. So here they are, like 30 years old, 40 years old. Mrs. K, I'm just calling to tell you I've had another baby or whatever. And, I was pretty young and I thought, gee, that's kind of cool. I mean, my mother was a teacher as well, and I knew, I knew that teachers cared. Teachers were definitely somebody that you looked up to, and I knew that. But the development that my grandmother had with her charges was very special because it was lots of personal stuff, and some of them didn't make the right choices in life. Maybe they took a wrong turn, and my grandmother was always there to say, turn yourself back around, right that ship. But the point was, she was always giving back. So in addition to working at that exceptional student education position, she also worked nights at a windshield wiper factory. And then during the summer, she worked on the playground. And then she decided, I can make a change. I've managed a household on my own, so I'm going to run for public office because I know how to do a budget. And so she did, and she lost. But she was the first female to run for office in my hometown. And when you choose to run for office, if you're good at what you do, you make sure that the people know that you truly care and truly want to make change. And sometimes making policy changes isn't easy, but you have to have the guts to do it. So if anybody had the guts, it was her. She taught me guts. When I decided to go into television news, it was still pretty much an era when there wasn't, yes, women were in TV news by the time I went to college, but we were still fighting. We were still fighting our way up. And there's nothing more exciting than being able to interview a person and get their story and share it. So when I would get stories and share those stories on TV news, I learned so much from every single person I've ever met, down to there was a hurricane victim in Paisley Paisley, Florida, a hurricane victim. The only thing that was remaining of his home, maybe 10 $1 coins. And I came to interview him, and he was sitting in a chair, and he said, can I give you one of these? I want to give you one of these. I said, no, I don't need your $1 coin. And he said, please, I'd be insulted. So I took his $1 coin. I felt terrible about it, but I had to do it. And so then, of course, down the road, I gave it to somebody else who really needed it. But all of the preparation I did as a journalist, learning how to ask the right questions, sometimes having to ask penetrating questions that aren't pleasant, especially when you're dealing with somebody who's accused of a wrongdoing, allowed me to see that we're pretty much all the same. Some of us has taken, like my grandmother said, some pretty wrong turns. And sometimes you can right the ship, sometimes you can't. My goal as a constituent services employee for my commissioner is to make sure I can help them right their ship, and not so much giving a handout, because it's really easy. I shouldn't say it's easy. In my opinion, lots of people formulate 501c3s, and they're going to give lots of things away to people, but not really teach them anything. You have to teach people how to make change, how to make the change that's going to make their community better. And having seen communities all across this country, well, I returned to work back in my hometown of Buffalo, and the community was starting to come back from a terrible era of dying blue-collar factories. At that time, when I went back to work in my hometown, it really didn't come back, not at that time. And then I relocated to Florida in 1992, and I was able to see immense growth, just immense growth, and watch it unfold right before my very eyes, and see this young old town where I live, this town that's now maturing, and watching it and helping people navigate through that, because one thing is universal: nobody likes traffic. So that's a lot. One of the biggest complaints that we tend to get at the office where I work is about traffic. That requires major change, and that requires forethought. Fortunately, I work for someone who has forethought and isn't afraid to put her policies out there. And I'm able to espouse those policies and explain to people, things don't change overnight, but somebody has to start. All of us can start as Rotarians. you know more than anybody, I don't have to tell you, starting change starts with one person. And if I can start change in her office just by speaking to one person and hearing from one person who said back to me, if you hadn't told me that, I would never know it. Something as simple as that. Because when a person calls an office that an elected official holds, very often they're afraid. They don't know what to ask. Or sometimes they'll call and make, excuse me, I have to get some water. Or sometimes they'll call and have assumptions that the person that they elected to office doesn't care about them. None of that is true in my particular case, again, for which I'm grateful. But we are in a position where people have to understand things do take time. We all know where we are in the world today, well, in our country today. A lot of division, a lot of people not exactly happy about where they're seeing their local, state, or federal governments going. I still believe in change, and I still believe that together, if we start from inside and make our worlds better, the communities where we live, you know, our streets, our neighborhoods, doing things as simple and minimal as making sure I pick up the trash if it's thrown out in my neighborhood. I have to do that. I mean, I can't say somebody else is going to do it. We all do that together. Not only are we getting to know one another instead of running inside of our houses, we're getting to know one another and we're making our communities better. I could go off and off on tangents related to crime and things that I deal with when people call the office and would expect crime to change overnight. Culturally, that's something we all have to make a conscious decision to do. Each day, though, my belief is each day, you know, when you go to bed, two things. If you have children, you have to, you know, I had a good friend once who said, if I can't hug my child, truly hug my child and look myself in the mirror at night, what have I done? Yeah, what have you done? I mean, you can't leave and not say, I tried everything I could to help a constituent. Or, and not all, you know, you can't help everybody all the time, but boy, you can sure try. And I believe as a journalist, I learned how to best help people because I learned more, you know, I learned about a lot of resources that when I speak to others on the phone today in my current position, I will talk to people about topics that I would assume they would know, have no clue, because they haven't engaged. They haven't wanted to engage with their locally elected official or deal with a constituent services individual for something like trying to get an answer. You know, when I was the last part of my TV news career, which I am blessed to say I left of my own volition. I didn't particularly like where I saw TV news going. And so I left to take my media relations background to Orange County Public Schools as the senior manager of media relations for the district, and then elevated to the director. And I enjoyed that time frame there. However, when I left television news, I saw that we're in a position now, folks, where we are more and more being lesser encouraged to really listen to a story and make a decision. We're being fed the pablum and told how to believe. So I just couldn't do that anymore. I expected more of the viewer, and I still do. But I think that's dreaming because I don't think people want to know the issues. Sometimes I think it's very easy for people to just say, that's bad, and leave it at that and not want to change it. Well, if it's bad, let's try to make it good. But anyways, at the end of my tenure at Channel 2, a news director tried something unique, and it was to put us on beats. So I wasn't report. Of course, if it was a major story, I would go and report on the major news story. But basically for 7 years, I reported on nothing but education, public and private education from K through 20. So from pre-K actually all the way through college. If there was an education beat story, I was out there doing it. Fitting because of what my background was, coming from a household of educators. So it really worked. And again, I saw the ability of education to turn everything around, to right that ship. The minute that that spark got into a child's eye or an adult's eye, and once that ship got righted, there was no turning back. I mean, once that spark of education from just even one good teacher, one good educator reached that student, no matter the age, what I saw to me was so exciting. It was more exciting than covering any major actor, actress. I've met many presidents. I've interviewed presidents. Seeing a student being able to say, I learned, I know what to do now, and I know my path forward. That was the most exciting thing I've witnessed. So I can bring that, what may seem like to some, a juvenile excitement. It's not to me, because I guess I'm still pretty juvenile in my mind. But when I see that juvenile excitement, when I saw that juvenile excitement, that's what I bring to work each day today in 2022. If somebody's calling and they don't know a process or they don't know who to call, hi, I'm here, I'll help you. And guess what? You can talk to me, and if you want to act like you don't know it all, that's okay. That's okay, because I'll help you. We'll work through it together. I kind of view, I think because of the way I was brought up with my grandmother's in education, and my mother, and my father trained for being an educator, but of course he went to work at the steel plant like most dads where I grew up. With all that education going around, the exposure to ideas and knowledge, it was very natural for me to then get into a constituent services position. And I really enjoy it. I love what I do. I'm grateful that I am able to see, talk, and hear from very many people every day. And that's what I have to say right now about me and how I got into constituent services, why education is the key. And as a constituent services employee, the one thing I always say, I'm training a new coworker currently, we work together with the person. We don't speak to the person, we speak with the person. Just like when you're interviewing somebody in journalism, you're speaking with the person. You're not barking questions.
That's fantastic.
I don't know. I think I pretty much hit the points of education is the key to opening any door. Any door.
Yes, amen. Amen. And what you're talking about is basically what we do, and as far as engaging people, and it's just like charity and love, and civil service and community service. What Barbara does, who's a member of ours, Barbara Ansar, is she engages people and then provides them and engages a with them, and then provide them what they need and answer their questions by directing them to the services they need. And that's the same kind of thing. You that what their needs and then direct them to the organizations they need. And you're doing the thing. What do you need? What are you seeking? And what's your problem? And then here are the solutions. And same kind of you're doing.
Dr. Olmsted, when I was in television news, I spoke to many Rotarian groups here in Florida, and also when I was in Buffalo, and once in Michigan, northern Michigan. And that's what I learned about Rotarians from back then, is similar ethic as far as we'll help you, but then we're going to make sure you know how to help yourself. Mm-hmm. And then replicating that. Isn't that true of what Rotarians are known to do?
Right. Well, we our project sustainability. is we don't go out and just put a well in, we teach you how to keep it going. And
Yep.
when we have down in Haiti is we not only just supply sheets, but we want them to have a, right now they're hand washing everything. Well, we're going to help them. We're putting in, just wrote a check yesterday from my foundation to help them, that Carolyn helped fund. Carolyn Willett up in Carolinas, she couldn't get on just now. Her internet's down, but we wrote a check to help put get them their first washing machine, because down there, everybody has to have. Well, there's 21 kids and going on to 50. They're just being moved into a home with 50. And well, they're not going to be able to wash sheets and clothes for 50 orphans. We're getting them a washing machine, and they're going to have to maintain that. And now they're going to need solar. Well, how are we going to maintain this and sustain it? Well, the kids are going to have to be taught how to do it, and how to maintain it, how to keep it going. And there's no electricity down there. And so now they're going to have to learn how to take care of the solar and how to run it and how to wash and how to fold and how to take care of things. And so it's that sustainability and how to be economic about it and how to maintain their own life, and then how to be house maintainers, both the boys and the girls. So it's a sustainability and going on from that. But your talk about governance. Well, I know that we're part of government. We're the government. And I was taught that back in Brownies, Girl Scouts, 4-H, FFA. I was taught all that and I absorbed it. And then going into Rotary, I learned all that, and I learned that I'm part of the government, and people laugh at me when I try and do that. And they say, well, the government's supposed to be doing this. The government's supposed to. I'm government. I'm part of the government. We pay the taxes. And if we're supposed to be telling up and tell you something's wrong, you don't know it. You're not out here. You're not out here seeing that the streets are covered with political signs and that are in illegal spots. You don't know that there are all these bandit sites around that are illegally placed. You don't know there are dead trees on the roads that are getting ready to fall down during the next storm and take out all the electricity in the community, like this week when we had these heavy storms. Kathy doesn't know this, so Kathy can't get it taken care of before the next storm hits next week. And we're the government, we're the citizens, we pay the taxes, and it just happens to be we paid you to do the work. And that's what I was taught in Girl Scouts and Brownies and 4-H. But I have the opportunity to join those organizations and get taught about that, or didn't pay attention in history class and civics class, don't understand that.
No. And earlier today, Dr. Olmsted and I were chatting, and I'm preparing myself right now for what'll ultimately, be the end of a working full-time career. It's going to happen someday. So I was thinking about the things that I truly am passionate about while I was waiting to get some car work done. And I was thinking one of the things that I would love to be able to bring to schools, but in a fun way, is for students to be able to learn just exactly what you said, Dr. Olmsted, about we are the government. Our responsibility for voting, well, that's something I take very seriously. I was taught that from day one. You're always going to vote. That's what you do. You've been given that right. Both my parents served in World War II. And so it was, voting is something we did instantly in my household. And I would like to be able to maybe put together some kind of a course and bring that to students as a visiting teacher, if you will, in an interesting fashion.
Amen.
Because this lack of ability to believe that you are part of government, or you're just going to maybe bark orders at government, or, well, the collaboration is gone. We know that. Collaborativeness is not something that's very popular right now. It's much more popular to be polarizing. And that's okay, but it's not always cool, especially when you want to get things done and we all have to live here together.
And we have Rotarians, and we certainly hope that you would, I don't extend the invitation to Rotary to a lot of people, but one reason I've elected you as a Paul Harris Fellow is that I believe that you emulate the four-way test and that you have the characteristics of a Rotarian. So I would like to, with the Paul Harris Fellow, here is the certificate that I'm going to give you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And here is the pin that you can wear. I'm going to read the award ceremony to you. The others don't have a copy of it right now. This is the pin, and you with it. And it reads, the presentation of a Paul Harris Fellow recognition is the Rotary's Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for a substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs. A fellowship, as you know, is money, a scholarship given to people to go on to school. That's what a fellowship is. And it started out as money given to peace scholarships. And then it became used for other scholarships. And we give money. I've given money to the foundation for scholarships. And we also give it now for other, to the foundation for other means, like orphanages, like wells and other uses now beyond just our peace scholarships. And we do own 6 Peace Foundation universities around the world.
Wow.
And so in appreciation for a substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs, it is named for our founder, Paul Harris, a Chicago lawyer who started Rotary International with 3 business associations in 1905. And he did plant a tree on Lake Eola back in about 1909. And it was actually torn down by the planters when they planted, when they extended that little bridge area where they tore it down. And so then I got it replanted. They did a fake replanting when I had a ceremony arranged, and they did a fake replanting, but ended up planting it in another park. There where that pretend tree is, there's a tree there. They did a fake planting there in 2014. We had our Rotary International, Gary Wong here, and he did a fake planting there, and then they actually planted a real tree in another park. Oh. The one Paul Harris planted. He actually ended up, after he got his law degree, he ended up, without being able to get any law work, he actually did citrus grove work out in Claremont for a while. Wow. While it is now, it wasn't until 1917 when Rotary International President Arch Klump had the foresight to begin the Rotary Foundation. We move closer to a world of peace and goodwill today as Katherine becomes a Paul Harris Fellow. The gifts of the Rotary Foundation's educational and humanitarian programs are a commitment to peace and to a better life for people across the world whom you and I never met. This is a truly selfless action and demonstrates your commitment to our common goals of world understanding and peace. It is because of gifts and commitments that our Rotary Foundation is able to carry out an array of programs that achieve beneficial changes in our world. including living conditions, increased food production, better education, wider availability of treatment and rehabilitation for the sick and disabled, new channels for the flow of international understanding, and brighter hopes for peace. In becoming a Paul Harris Fellow, you join a family of well over 1 million Paul Harris Fellows worldwide. Besides several members, all of the members of our club, you stand with notables such as Mother Teresa, Ella, Prince Charles, Indira Gandhi, Luciano Pavarotti, and Pope John Paul II. This past year, I presented Dr. Fauci and Birx with a Paul Harris Fellow, all of whom have been recognized for their devotion to the ideal of goodwill, peace, and understanding. It gives me and the other members of this club great pleasure to present you with this emblem and symbol of appreciation, to say thank you for making a difference in our community and the lives of the less fortunate people around the world. We congratulate you and thank you for your commitment to the programs of the Rotary Foundation. And we'll give you this opportunity to respond.
I'm just grateful. I'm grateful and blessed. And I'm honored to think that you would even think of me as a Paul Harris Fellow. But I will say that I think my grandmother would be proud. And I'm sure she is seeing this from heaven. And this means a lot to me because I take my job and my role very seriously, and I always have. And this means quite a bit to me.
Well, you're most welcome. And I think the biggest thing is that every time I call or text, no matter what time it is, you respond. And I'm like, I sent this late. You shouldn't have responded. Go to bed. And I've told you that. Go to bed. It doesn't matter. You are there, and take your job seriously. And even if it's not in your realm, you send it off to somebody. And I think that that shows initiative. And when I call other people in other places, other departments, they say, oh, it's not my job. Go find out who it is. And I call other people in other cities, other departments, and they say, oh, it's not this city. Call them, find out who it is. And you give me the number of who it is, or you say, I'll send it over and take care of it for you. And that shows that you care for the citizen. And that's very important.
Gosh, I very much appreciate this. It makes me emotional because you never really know if you're impacting folks. And again, I'm grateful for this award, and I thank you very much. Thank you very much, very much. But you never know till you know. And then when you're able to say, gosh, somebody recognized it, it feels good.
Well, that's why we recognize, and just like, Fauci and Birx, you're a civil servant. You didn't run and get elected. You are a civil servant. You do this out of your own desire to help people, and you're just getting paid for it. It's not a desire to get recognition, and we thank you for it. And again, if you desire to become a Rotarian and do this in your afterlife, we welcome you, because we realize that you're doing this out of passion, and that you fit the model of a Rotarian. We want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, folks. And I would like to consider that after this part of me is finishing up. I would like to consider that, because finding answers is something that I like to do.
Yes, yes. And anytime you want to join us, whether you're a member or not, you're welcome to participate, volunteer. We take people into, and people can visit and participate anytime.
Well, thank you, Dr. Olmsted and all. I would very much, and you're allowed to come to a meeting just to see what's I mean, I know you can just attend a meeting, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
at my invitation, indeed.
Okay. Great.
And-
Well, I'll get with you more about that as to when that might be able to happen. How often do you meet?
Well, we're asynchronous, so we announce when we're going to have a meeting, and I believe I have you on our list to now that you've spoke, and you should get an email. And then we have our four-way test we say at the end of the meeting. And John, did you want to say something to Katherine?
Oh, well, I just wanted to thank her for being here today, and I did learn a lot just by listening. And one thing I learned in particular is that when you're talking to someone, don't just interview them, asking them questions, but talk with them. And I thought that's when the light bulb went off in my head today. So I thank you very much, Kathy. That was very good.
Wonderful.
Really? I'm so pleased to hear that. Thank you, John, because when you train to become a journalist and you learn how to be a good journalist, I majored in print journalism. I had no intention of going into television broadcast news, but that is the way events happen. So that's where I went. When you're training to do that, they kind of don't train you to do that. They kind of train you to just ask the questions, but then you have to go back to how you were brought up, how I was brought up as a kid. And again, coming from that background of educators, everybody would ask that next question, why?
Oh,
Why? And so ask, and then get involved and just become that person. I have to share one thing, if I may, because it really meant a lot to me. And I guess we're allowed to share things that mean a lot to us today. When I was here at WESH-TV, the NBC affiliate in Orlando, and I'd been here about 4 years, and I hadn't had a raise. And a new news director came in, and he said, let's talk about your contract. And he looked at my salary and he asked why it was what it was, which was comparatively low, okay, compared to some other reporters. And I said, well, I can't tell you that. I guess we just never got to that point where we negotiated, and I was doing my thing, and I didn't push. And he said, well, now's the time to push, he said, because I really want to give you a hefty raise. And he did. But during that conversation, he said, I got to ask you a question. At the time, I was what they called the bureau chief for Lake and Sumter counties, which this was the early 90s. This was still pretty rural, okay? And much, much different from Buffalo, New York, much different. And so he said, but I have to ask you one thing before I tell you how much of a raise I'm giving you. Every time I talk to somebody, they tell me that you really care when you interview them, and you don't just try to get something on the air, but you try to understand the story. How do you do that? How the heck did a girl from Western New York ever come down to Lake County and win these people over? And I said, because people are people. It doesn't matter if you're in Western New York, Ukraine, or, Lake County. People just want to be treated like another human being. And he said, God, that's so simple. I said, yeah, well, a lot of people don't do it because they think it takes too much work, but it doesn't. It's easier that way.
You know what?
I like that.
Yes. You know what fascinates me is that the on-air stars want to be the star, and they have to tell people what to say, and then put them saying it, and then the person they're interviewing repeating what they say.
Yeah.
It just fascinates me.
Yes.
So you're upset? Yes, I'm upset. So you're mad?
Yes. Yes.
And
it's called lazy journalism.
Yeah. Why not just put the person saying I'm mad? I have never seen. And I used to do video. I mean, I've done video, I've done on air, and I'm just
Yes, you have. Mm-hmm.
Just how and have them tell you what they feel, not feed them the story. It's amazing.
Oh, yes. And the times the times that I was able to garner interviews with individuals who, we all have our day in the sun, okay? So as a journalistic, your goal is to get the interview the other guy doesn't have. In those times when it was my turn to be in the sun, because everybody gets that chance, I would talk to the person and I'd say, gee, why'd you come to me? And inevitably they would say, because I thought you'd listen, and I didn't think you'd twist my words. So that was neat. That was kind of neat, but nonetheless, that's how it is. And I thank you greatly, and I apologize for my lateness. It is what it is, but I just had a great time today. I don't know, are we over?
Almost.
Okay.
John wants to speak. Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say thank you again. It was worth the wait, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, John. And I truly hope to meet you in person.
Wonderful.
Likewise. Excellent.
He's a civil servant, so Volusia.
Correct.
Oh,
Volusia
really,
County.
John?
Yes, I'm a planner in Volusia County, and I also act as an ombudsman when someone's having a hard time getting a building permit or getting started on a new project. So that's why I really wanted to listen to what you were talking about with being a constituent representative or person, liaison, so that I could understand exactly how you were doing it as well.
Oh, that is so cool. The new person I'm training is the other aide in my office. That young man is going to be assigned primarily to planning and zoning items in the office. So I'm working with him now, and you'll appreciate this as a planner, because I said, now, I brought him down to the planning department and I had him meet with the chief planner, and it was quite a good meeting. And then he met with the chief zoning officer. And I said, now remember, you don't want to take a real lot of their time because they're really busy.
Yes, I understand that too.
Oh, John, that's so funny to know that. Oh I hope to meet you.
Yes, ma'am. And we have different events in Lake Mary, Cork and Olive. Some of the groups meet over there, and my wife is active in different things. So we'll definitely see if we can invite you so we can meet face to face and share stories.
Oh, I would love to. That would be great.
Thank you. All right.
Smiling and smiling and smiling and is so important with the constituents. That's so important. Letting them know you're a person and convey that. You could smiling on the phone. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's just good. When I went to college, first I got an AA in criminal justice before I got my journalism degree, because I was going to be a police officer. So, and then I didn't. But nonetheless, when I was going to school nights at that time, I was going to a community college, and I was working during the day at the Department of Motor Vehicles in Buffalo. And one of the things that I was told all the time was, make sure you smile through that voice. I learned from that county clerk, and I'll tell you, I mean, she wouldn't demand, she would not allow anything less.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we have what we do at our meetings is, and it is the method and the meeting is the four-way test. And in 1932, Rotarian Herbert J. Taylor created the four-way test, and they were struggling to keep their businesses alive in 1932. And
absolutely
said that the test, which has been translated into more than 100 languages, asks the following question: of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And then we add, is it fun?
Is it fun?
Yeah. So,
and then you add what? Excuse me.
Is it fun? That's
is it fun? Oh, I love it. So, you gotta have fun. Like my grandmother said, whatever you're gonna do, make sure you like it, because you're gonna do it a long time. So you better have fun at it.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And we shall be together soon. You're here in a pocket. I'll get you this Well, actually, on the 26th, if you want, John, and they'll let you off work to come to a board meeting, Orange County board meeting, I'm gonna present it to her at the Orange board meeting. There's a 9 o'clock meeting on the 26th of July, and I'm going to pin her at the board meeting and present her certificate.
Oh,
Yeah,
And I'm grateful for that. I saw that email and I will be there.
great, fantastic. Thank you all.